On this episode, we bring together three leaders of different generations to share insights into addressing complex issues in fundamental ways. Former Minister of Finance, Sri Nor Mohamed Yakcop, addresses the long-term issue of low income levels through progressive salaries and reducing dependency on government subsidies.
One way to do that is to increase income.
Okay.
We have increased income over the years from 260 to 9,000 per average income.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in median is slightly less. If there's one thing the nation can do more, is that we should focus on progressive salary. Somehow our salary level has not kept up with the cost of living. But some people worry that if we increase the salary too much, the investors may not come in, etc. I don't think that is true. I think the investors will come in, and we need to go towards this regime of progressive
salary.
And the government is doing that. If we do not have progressive salary, you know what will happen? If the people do not have enough money to buy and to live, to Razak's words, dignified, civilized life, they will have to depend on subsidies. But the government wants to rationalize subsidies for a very good reason, because subsidy is very blunt, and a lot of people misuse subsidy.
Yes.
People who shouldn't get subsidy. The smugglers make money subsidy, the foreigners make money. So the government is doing the right thing. Subsidy should be rationalized. But we don't want our Malaysians to depend on subsidies either. They should be given a higher salary so that they can live a dignified.
Yes. Young esports professional Hazim Kye shares how the complexity of esports is managed through a simple, focused and disciplined approach.
What we're playing here is pixels.
Okay.
It's like most comparable to throwing darts.
Okay.
That precision, it will cost you the game. So not playing for a few days and losing that little tiny bit of precision would cost you. Like at the highest level, because at the highest level everyone can shoot. So everyone is precise.
It sounds very intense, and I know I've seen a lot of YouTube videos of these esports professionals. I mean, how do you balance it? You obviously will have your ups, and of course there'll be your times where you are maybe jaded or stale. How do you maintain this mental focus, at the same time calmness, and constant ability to do this repeatedly?
I would say it differs from like one person to another, but a lot of it comes from passion, and a lot of it comes from good habits, discipline, I would say. Okay. So especially your preparations. So like even in the team, as the captain, I always emphasize to my team to be very disciplined in preparations. So consistent in your warm up routine, what you do, and so on. You need to be consistent in terms of your mindset coming to the training, and that plays a very huge role. Our training on those days were horrible.
I can imagine.
Yeah, were horrible. We couldn't fully capitalize on the training hours because during training we call it scrimmage. Okay. So during scrims we would play against teams from other regions. So Philippines, Thailand, Japan, Korea. We would play teams from these regions. So during those days where we couldn't prepare ourselves, we would get smashed.
Of course, I can imagine.
We would get smashed, and that's why those good habits, good discipline, good routines, those are the key to like consistencies lah, and to like preparing for such a high standard of the game. So I would say definitely in anything actually, preparations is very important.
And actually have that leadership ability in you. I'd love it one day if maybe you were even one of our country's type of leaders. Have you ever been enticed into politics, for example?
Honestly, I was.
Oh, you were? Okay.
I was very, I would say passionate in terms of actually quote unquote leading or change, like being the changing force of the country lah.
Ooh.
I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, and honestly, at deep inside, I think it still buries deep inside me. Like there's still a part of me that,
Okay.
like, but I feel like
Wow.
given due to recent circumstances or like
What you see.
yeah, so
That's
it's
the
kind of
thing.
demotivating.
Your generation, and again, it makes me feel much older. But your generation can make this change. Who knows? Esports happens to be the platform that you are performing.
Definitely.
We don't know, and I'm not going to ask you where you're going to be in 5 years' time because that's maybe too long away. But I honestly believe that someone, you Kai, inshallah, kan,
Inshallah.
Hazim Kai, you can be a great role model. You can be, you are a great role model. You are a leader in many ways, and I hope that the audience who's watching, including hopefully a younger audience or so who are looking at you, can say, wow, there's a lot of takeaways from this type of session. Former TnGo CEO Nizam Samsuddin relates how simple steps to address the problem take away the blur of the complex issues at hand. You like to move across industry, and of course, eventually it did lead to TnGo before Agenta, for example. But so, are you the type of leader who, every now and then, gets an itch to try and do something different, or is it what exactly motivates you?
Usually I don't move any sooner than 3 years lah. But I think it just so happened that there was some form of inertia. And I think before I joined TnGo, I was basically doing my own thing, and then the CEO was now Yang Berhormat Tengku Zafrul.
Yes.
He came to see me and say, hey, can you please stop in your retirement mode? We need you to consider maybe coming back to corporate and turning things around at TnGo. And at that time, CIMB wanted someone transformational. And I had no finance background, or I have never worked in a bank. So I went for my interview, and then eventually I had a session with Tan Sri Nazir Razak lah. Essentially, kudos to him and Zafrul. Both of them took a bet on me, right? And so my foray into TnGo was really the start of my foray in going back into corporate Malaysia again. I was somewhat disillusioned after SCOMI because I wanted to find out whether there was a lot of things that I needed to learn or I lacked during that time, and so when I came back, I was a lot more mature and a lot different in terms of how I approach things lah.
And of course, I always remember the times that you were in TnGo, because it was at that particular point of time where congestion was just to the max at our toll plazas. TnGo had been a service for years. The mindset of the average Malaysian who would frequent toll plazas every day was still, I don't mind paying cash instead of pumping money into a card and not showing whether it will ever fulfill its full amount. And one day, the government made a decision to totally do away with cash payment at the toll plaza. And I said, whew, Nizam. and again, but kudos to you. I mean, I'm sorry to embarrass you, but I have to say this to the audience also. If there's one person who helped to do that, it is actually you. So tell me, as a leader, as someone who has been tasked a role, how many percent really falls on stakeholder management and influencing?
At that point in time, before the cashless policy came out, probably about 60%. But I had a bigger role. I had to rebuild the confidence and reputation of an ailing financial payments company that was hit by different things. They had a branding issue, they had consumer issues, but more importantly, there was internal, not unrest, but they were demotivated. When you get complaints over and over again and you don't know how to solve them, you get demoralized. So the most important part about this whole thing at the base of it was to make sure that my team regains their confidence, right? And to do that, I needed to chart a path for them to see what we needed to do in sequence, right? Not 5 years big picture, but okay, I have 10 things I need to do. Let's do this first, right? So one was that we had to address our ability to respond to customer complaints.
Okay.
And when we analyze the data, and I also went through this whole data analytics regime with my team, 70% of the complaints that came to us were 100% within our control to address. Point number one. Point number two, almost 80% of it was process driven.
Process driven.
Process driven. That means somewhere within my process, it created a lag to service the client. Either in terms of transferring monies into their card or not repair a particular smart tag. It was a process issue. And I told them the only way to eliminate a process issue is to either improve it with technology or eliminate it completely.
Eliminate the process.
The process completely. And so they looked at me, boss, but we've been doing this for the last 20 years. But I said, the card is not going to survive all of us. It is going to change. Right? So what I did to them was to tell them that, look, first, we must convince the government to go cashless so that when people do more online transactions, we create less opportunity for the process to be physically managed by a person. We create more digital processes that we can monitor, and the data comes back to us for us to act. So this digital transformation from data to action was the first part that we needed to solve. But it took me 2 years to put out a policy paper to discuss with all the toll concessionaires, and I must say I had to work with all the toll concessionaires to make this happen, and all of us had to then go to see the government. So it was a long process. I think the first part is to transform data into action for the people to see. Second part is to start rethinking what's the future. And I told them the future is actually having a digital wallet. At that time, it was something like, what does that mean? I said, we need to build an e-wallet. Okay, and the e-wallet basically allows people to pay from their mobile phones. Right? And the fact is, a card doesn't keep data very well. It has very limited space to keep data. The only way to keep data is to have an online platform like what we have in the e-wallet in order for us to service the client. Right? So I started brainstorming with my team what the future would look like from a customer point of view. I just listed all the things I wanted as a consumer. And then when I went to the tech team, how do we build a system? I want a system that will answer to all these problems. Right? So that was the part where they jam lah, because they kata kat Malaysia tak ada orang buat ni, boss.
Kan?
Right? So when I came in, we already had started a discussion with Celcom at that time. They were also thinking of building Boost. So Boost was initially talking to us, but eventually it didn't work out for many reasons. And then I went to the board and said that, will you allow me a few more months for me to work out whether we can work on a technology that's far more scalable, that will allow us, one, banking APIs that will allow us to create more stickiness for the customer to use Touch 'n Go beyond just toll in other financial aspect. Two is also to create a platform for them to be more loyal to us because they like the service, not because they have to force to use it. So it becomes an option, right? So Datuk Zainal Abidin Putih, Datuk Zab, as we fondly call him, was our chairman, and of course he's a board member of Khazanah now, and he's like, Zam, who are you talking about? I said, well, I need to talk to either Alipay or WeChat. And then he looks at me, do you know any of them from China? No, I don't, but I need 3 months. I'll work it out. And then he looks at me, are you sure, Zam? I said, yeah, no. I said, Datuk, I'll work it out with my team. I'll figure out how to get in touch with them. And of course, with CIMB team, we both worked both channels. But eventually, I sent an email to Alipay. And this is the beauty of people talk about the stars being aligned. But I talk about, Allah wills things when you have put in the effort with a collective group of people with similar values.
And this is Jack Ma.
So I wrote an email to Alipay stating that I'm so and so from Touch 'n Go, and it is my pleasure to work with you because I want to build a wallet.
So this is literally how it's done.
I sent an email from the Alipay website straight into their website, and it was responded 1 month after that by the country head of Singapore and Malaysia. Greta Gunawan, and Greta came to see me, and we started talking, and of course all that became history lah, and now we moved on with the e-wallet. But Eric Jing, who is the current chairman of Alipay, used to say to his team that we were 2 weeks too late to respond to Nizam at the time when he wrote to us, right? Because you imagine, no one actually expected someone like me to offer that, to do a partnership through a general email.
Kan? I mean, sometimes we think, these are deals which are G to G and then introduce company to company and
So
MOUs.
I mean, to be true honest, I don't know anyone in China. I didn't know anyone in Alipay or Hangzhou. I mean, like
Well, that's how it was done.
and the only reason I went through that route is because I just couldn't give up, and I didn't want to fail my board and my shareholders. And at that time, that was the very thing that Alipay saw as the very DNA that would be aligned with them. Like someone like me who was randomly wanting to work with them, found a way to make it work.
Tune in to our Cuba Cerita YouTube and Spotify channels to catch their full episodes.